Hey guys, this is an excerpt from my fantasy novel, The Price of Renewal. I just released this new copy with a brand new cover. I did this over quite some time, drawing each of these characters and putting them together, and it's just a much sleeker looking, awesome new edition of the book. You can get this on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and ebook. But if the price is too high for anyone and you'd still like to get your hands on the book, I also just released a brand new mass market paperback edition, which is about 4.5 by 7 inches, so quite a bit smaller than this one. And that one is going for only $10. So go ahead and pick up your copy today over on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. And let's go ahead and get on with this excerpt. The Price of Renewal by Austin Buffington. Chapter 5. Naya's worn boots scraped against the uneven cobblestones as she navigated the city's winding streets. Stonereach had grown since her childhood. The towering spires reflected the great mountain that rose to the sky, making up the city's backdrop. She paused at a crossroads, gazing up at the lavish homes of the noble district. Despite the alluring promise of treasures and coin ripe for her plunder, Naya usually avoided this part of the city. She was blatantly out of place here, amongst all the finely dressed and pampered upper-class citizens that roamed the streets without a care in the world. Her tattered makeshift clothing and rough appearance had always drawn the eyes of many. So this is where you live now, Naya thought, her gaze sweeping over the rows of elegant structures that lined the street. Her nose was assaulted by the nauseating aroma of expensive floral perfumes wafting from passers-by. Feeling the subtle onset of a light headache, she searched for the family crest that would mark her old friend's new life, married into wealth and status. You've really made it to the good life, haven't you, Vivian? Oh my, look at that woman's outfit, a hushed voice whispered from across the street. She hardly has anything on. I can see her stomach and shoulders. Naya could tell the pedestrian was trying to be quiet so she wouldn't hear her, but it was not quiet enough for her keen ears. Naya's fingers curled into fists at her sides, wishing she could be one of them, clad in fine silks instead of tatters. Trying her best to ignore the whispers and piercing gazes, she continued making her way down the street. Finally, she caught a glimpse of the symbol she was searching for, a green and gold shield adorned with a sheaf of wheat. The last time Naya had spoken with her old friend, Vivian was being courted by a wealthy man whose family owned an unfathomable amount of land. It had been years since then, and the family's home was the only place Naya thought she might be able to find her. As she walked up the beautiful marble steps to the front door, Naya began to feel a bit of sweat rolling down her temple. Her fingers fidgeted at her thigh, the rapid beat of her heart echoing in her ears. If Vivian was here, she was clearly not the same girl that Naya once knew. With one shaking hand, she reached up to the gold knocker that was fastened to the door, a dragon's head with a large ring hanging from its mouth. Knock, knock, knock. Naya banged the heavy gold ring against the wooden door 3 times, then stepped back and waited with her hands clasped before her. What if she doesn't want to see me? She thought in anticipation. Look at me. I'm just a reminder of her past life, the one that she managed to escape. Several moments passed and Naya began to turn around, intending to head back the direction she'd come from. Then, with a click, the door opened to reveal a stunning woman wearing a long white dress. Her wrists and neck were decorated in shimmering gold jewelry, and her skin was well maintained, resembling fine porcelain. Can I help you, ma'am? The woman asked. Vivian? Naya hesitated, the name lingering in the air like an old melody. Yes, that is I, the woman responded. Who might you be? You don't recognize an old friend? It's me, Naya. Naya's heart sank as she began to regret her decision. Vivian narrowed her eyes, scanning Naya from head to toe. Naya? I can't believe it. Look at you. Not a young girl anymore. Well, it's been a long time. I was hoping maybe you'd want to head down to the inn and get a meal with me, Naya said as her cheeks flushed, a hint of embarrassment. Oh, I'm sorry, Naya. I can't. Have a lot going on? Naya asked. No, it's not that, Vivian began, avoiding eye contact with her old friend. It's just, well, things are different now. I have a family and a home, and it looks beautiful. Must be a nice change from how we grew up. I do not miss that orphanage, said Naya as she began to approach her old friend. Can I come in and see it? No, that wouldn't be a good idea. I'm sorry, Naya. I really am. But I best get back to cleaning. There's a lot of work to be done. Vivian closed the door without giving Naya another opportunity to speak. Deflated, Naya turned and trudged back down the pristine stairs. She knew it was a bad idea to go looking for Vivian. They simply did not live the same lives anymore. The orphanage that connected them was a distant memory. So that's it, she thought, with her eyes focused on her boots. Not a word of apology, not even a moment of hesitation. I guess she's too good for me now. In her perfect little home, in her perfect little part of the city, away from all of us, the street rats. Naya's heart sank as she realized how the years had transformed their lives, and perhaps their friendship, into something unrecognizable. She opted out of going home to her pile of straw and her broken windows, which currently felt more like a prison than a refuge. Instead, she chose to embark on a long, reflective walk along the massive citadel wall that loomed over the city like a steadfast guardian. There was nothing for her in Stonereach, and she was unsure of why she still chose to dwell there. Fear, perhaps. Naya had never been outside the city's walls, and didn't even know where she'd go or what she'd do if she left. Still, this life of scraping by on the scraps of others, this life of stealing and trying to stay out of sight, it wasn't the life she'd once envisioned for herself. Tuning out all the commotion that surrounded her in the crowded city, she continued to trace the citadel's perimeter, dreaming of a better life beyond the walls that confined her. Aldenor closed in on the looming walls of Stonereach, now towering above him, a fortress of stone and mortar. The gates were wide open, the drawbridge lowered over the deep trench of the citadel's moat. Just before the water, a chaotic line of vendors and peddlers flanked the path. The air was thick with the smell of spiced meat and freshly baked goods, causing Aldenor's stomach to clench. From both sides of the path, salesmen barked their offers, thrusting wares toward anyone who passed, hoping to part a few coins from a traveler's purse before the city's gates closed for the night. As Aldenor strolled down the dirt road, the rambunctious dealings of the crowd simmered into an unnerving silence. He felt an oppressive force wash over him and slowed his pace, taking in his surroundings. The once busy throng had come to a halt. All eyes were now on Aldenor, their gazes heavy and scrutinizing. Aldenor slowly resumed walking, desperately trying to ignore the resentful glares that were being launched at him like arrows. That traveler said that they don't care for the Covenant in Stonereach, he recalled. Lord Serenath, grant me your protection. Aldenor lowered his gaze to the dirt, avoiding eye contact with the unnerved crowd that surrounded him. Time seemed to slow while he fought through his discomfort to take each step. Every instinct urged the unfortunate Reverend to turn around and head back to his comfortable village, but he knew he could not. Serenath had called him to a higher purpose. In his peripheral vision, Aldenor spotted a hulking man marching toward him from out of the crowd. The man's face bore an expression of ill intent. Aldenor picked up his pace, but the man was gaining on him. "Hey, priest!" the monstrous pursuer shouted in a deep voice full of rasp. "I'd like to have a word with you." Aldenor was nearly sprinting now, frantic to put as much distance as possible between himself and his pursuer. The motivation to turn around and give up on his task was greater than ever now. But if he did so, he would only be met by the wall of a brute that was on his tail. Then, out of nowhere, a hand grabbed his arm, hauling him off into the crowd. Aldenor glanced over to see that it was not the behemoth who had grabbed hold of him, but a thin, willowy woman, likely quite old. "Ye best come with me, lad," the woman said as the pair maneuvered through the crowd, taking refuge behind a large wooden merchant stall that provided ample cover. "They intended to hurt me," Aldenor shouted in a panic. "I know it was so. They truly meant to hurt me." "Ye can't be wearing them robes here, lad. Not in Stonereach," the woman explained while sifting through a pile of folded clothes. But I am a Reverend of the Covenant of Renewal. This is what I wear. With significant effort, Aldenor forced himself to lower his voice to avoid drawing further attention. Why can I not wear my vestments? Your beliefs are not welcome here anymore, I'm afraid. You best not be caught in them robes if ye value your life, the woman said, displaying a hint of empathy in her voice. Not to worry, dearie. I have just the thing. A haphazard pile of clothing that had been tossed to the side now sat next to the woman as she held her arms out toward Aldenor. Hanging from her hands was an unsuspecting black tunic. Aldenor was cautious of the woman, but after what he had just experienced, it was clear she had a point. This will suffice if you wish to enter the walls, she said. I don't understand. What about the chapel that resides right here within the citadel? My own preceptor once came here to help facilitate its growth, Aldenor inquired in disbelief. There was once a chapel of your covenant here, aye, but it was burned down many years ago. The people here do not approve of your religion. King Thalric himself called for the chapel's destruction. How could they, Aldenor began in utter bewilderment, destroy the chapel? We simply seek to provide a source of hope and vitality. Aldenor could not believe his ears. His heart ached at the thought of his faith being viewed as a curse, a betrayal of the hope that he cherished. He could not understand why a king would wish to destroy a chapel that could bring such good fortune to his people. Regardless, he needed to get into Stonereach if he was to continue his quest. Druenvar was far on the other side of the mountain. He would need transportation if he was to reach his next destination in a reasonable amount of time, and not to mention his safety. With reluctance, he reached for the tunic, but the woman pulled it away from his grasp. Not so fast, lad. It's going to cost ye some coin, she said with a grin. Aldenor, exhausted from his days of travel, only wanted to slip inside the castle's walls and find a quiet corner to rest. With a heavy sigh, he dug through his bag and pulled out his pouch of coins. Very well, Aldenor said in a deflated tone of surrender. How much? 10 silver, the woman replied as her grin widened. Without another word, Aldenor handed over 10 silver coins, hoping the black fabric would conceal him from unwanted eyes. A humble priest sent on a mission by his god. A lonely thief trying to find her way in the world. A wizard's apprentice on a quest for liberation. Follow Aldenor, Naya, and Anna as they venture through Erdania and uncover the hidden truth of the Covenant of Renewal, a dying religion with a gray morality. Read the hit book, The Price of Renewal, by Austin Buffington, available on Amazon.